if we want to help others and we have gone through some change, our best clients are the people we used to be. And for the people we used to be, the best teacher is somebody that we are now. And so, had I have not gone through the health scare, this is not nice. Lying in a hospital having a camera stuck up your backside, and because of your lifestyle, not because of some terrible illness that you've contracted somewhere, because you have chosen deliberately, or perhaps subconsciously, to just live your life in a certain way. So I do believe that if I hadn't have gone through all of that, I wouldn't be qualified to help people in the way that I'm able to help people now. Had I not experienced it, I wouldn't know what it's like to try and get out of it and fail, because that was me, and to get out of it and be committed to becoming the person that they want to be and I wanted to be.
Every man carries something: expectations, silence, struggles, the weight of having to look unbreakable. The Dad Project is a home for real, unfiltered conversations on men's mental health, the kind that have been missing for far too long. We share powerful stories and raw perspectives from those living it and those guiding men through it. Filmed at the Old Court in Windsor, it's about breaking silence, reshaping strength, and creating conversations that actually matter. I'm your host, Naroop Juti. Let's talk. Jason, take me back to that moment that you left your corporate job. A lot of people dream of doing it. Very few go through with it. Okay. What did that stir in you as a man?
Excitement is the first thing, because the reason I left that corporate job was I and my wife were working 12, 14-hour days. We were outsourcing parenthood to a paid nanny. And I felt that was just wrong. And I really wanted to just spend time with him. He was 5 at the time.
Your son?
Yeah. And I wanted to be there. I wanted to be a dad for him. That was absolutely key. And yeah, at a weekend I was, but during the working week, that role fell to somebody else who we were paying, and that just didn't seem right. And I remember, I used to get quite down traveling to work, and I would see parents, dads and mums, taking their kids to school, for example, and I would just think, I really, really want to be doing that. And so when that actually happened, when I did kind of do my last day, I just felt great, because it opened up this new opportunity for me to do something I really wanted to do and spend time with him. And I was lucky with the timing, because I finished work on the 31st of May, and he had 3 or 4 weeks left of his school. So I was doing the drop-offs and picking him up, engaging with the other parents around the school. So, I hadn't really met any of the parents really up until that point in time. And then of course he broke up for summer, and we had an amazing summer together. It was kind of time of your life stuff for me. And I think very impactful for him as well, even though, he was only 5 years old. But I still look back at the photographs that we took during that summer, visiting lots of different places and just having lots of fun. And the smiles that are radiating from the two of us is just, it just reminds me of what life's about, really.
I love that. There's 2 things that you said there, which I think are really important. One, you said you wanted to be a dad, right? And I think there's a lot to that. What does that actually mean?
Yes.
Right? And secondly, you wanted to do the things that some people think can be a bit inconvenient. Like, I wanted to go and drop him off to school. I wanted to do the pickups. I wanted to travel with him. You're seeing other people do that. And sometimes people think, oh my God, I'm going to pick the kids up. We're going to do this. But it clearly meant something to you, because you weren't having those experiences, right? So firstly, what does it mean to be a dad to you, right? What does that what is that? Define it for me clearly. And then what did you get from doing the drop-offs? Because I'm at the stage now where my daughter's going to start secondary school next year.
Right.
And she said to me the other day, Dad, I want to start walking to school myself soon. And I was like, no, you're not. But I felt it because it's that connection, right? So tell me how you feel about those things.
Well, in terms of being a dad, my definition of that would be presence in all of its forms. So it's physical presence, i.e. physically being there. But it's also mental presence. And it's, before, when I was working, I had a good job. It was a stressful job. It spanned multiple locations and time zones, which meant that there wasn't really, much opportunity to switch off. You were constantly checking emails and messages and all of those kind of things, which meant that even when I was physically with him, I wasn't fully mentally with him. And so the big difference was, I had more physical time with him, but the time that I did have with him, I was present, I was there. There was only one thing that I was focused on, and that was him. And that made a huge difference. So presence for me is everything about, fatherhood, motherhood as well, I guess. It's just being there and for them, so that they always know that you're there. That was key. And then I always think that the best times that we had wasn't, kind of at Legoland or, walking around Windsor Castle or, as you got older, riding roller coasters at Thorpe Park or whatever. The best times that we always had were our car journeys. Because there you are in a car and you just talk. And it's just so special. And we've been doing that since he was the age of 5, and some of the conversations that we've had have just been amazing and brilliant, and we still do that now. So the school runs I still do. We're, for our sins, both Aston Villa supporters, and we live in the south of England. So when we drive up to Villa Park to watch a match, we've got 3.5-4 hours each way in the car where we're just chatting and being, and that is so special for me, because that's when you really get to know somebody, to understand somebody, to properly get what's going on in their lives at that particular point in time, and be present. It comes back to that. It's you are completely immersed in them and their lives, and that is so important for me.
What do you think that you were lacking from your life when you were in that corporate world? Because a lot of people want to climb the corporate ladder, right?
I did, absolutely. I was so ambitious.
Yeah. So what were you lacking?
It was the connection with him, and it just didn't feel right to me, and I don't really know why that is the case. So as a child myself, very different situation, but my dad worked on the production line at the Land Rover up in Birmingham, and he would work a lot of hours, primarily to get overtime so that we could afford to go on holidays and things like that. And so it wasn't like he'd set an example that I was therefore following. But it's also not the case that his absence for, quite a lot of days. So he would start work at 7, finish work at 7 in the week. He would work on a Saturday and Sunday morning. It's not like that absence had an impact, at least consciously, on me, and certainly not during my childhood years. But for me, it just seemed like something was missing. And I was meant to play a better and a bigger role in his life than, working in a corporate position was allowing. So, it was that feeling of absence, and as a result of that absence, I felt down about it. I felt like something was missing in my life, and I was unhappy as a result. And so it became pretty obvious that, I should be spending more time with him. It would be impossible to have done that in the role that I was in. And so finding another route became the priority for me. And I'm a big believer that, when you set your mind on something, opportunity suddenly arises quite unexpectedly at times as well. And that is exactly what happened. And I was able to take an opportunity, kind of mold and shape it into a way that that made what I wanted doable.
What was that?
An exit. So exiting the company in a way that I had some financial support that would keep me, keep me going, so that I didn't have to rush into another job. I didn't have to, kind of sell the house or anything like that. I had a soft landing from that exit, and that also afforded me the time to really think about, okay, well, how do I now engineer a life and design a life where I can be the dad that I want to be, but I'm also fulfilling, some other obligations as a father in terms of, contributing financially, etc., to the household.
Talk to me about that. You've now left your job. You're spending time with your son.
Yes.
What was life like then? How did you make money? What did you do? How did you engineer that life?
Well, the first thing to say is that I had this wonderful summer with him. And then that meant I didn't really give this part of what happens next any thought whatsoever. I was just too busy having a great time. And, new school term started. I dropped him off at school and I got home and everything just seemed empty. The house was empty, literally. And I thought, oh, well, what do I do? And after probably a couple of weeks of that, I was a little lost. And that resulted in ultimately a loss of self-confidence, a loss of self-esteem, a loss of self-identity. That was absolutely key because, before, my identity was basically my job title. Someone says, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm XYZ for this particular company. And then because I've been meeting these new parents, or not new parents, but I was now meeting these parents now for the first time. Obviously, a lot of people ask, oh, what do you do? And ask questions. It's quite normal, isn't it? And I really didn't know how to answer that question. And not because of anything in terms of the impression that might create with them, but I didn't know inside. I didn't know who I was anymore. And that really hit me.
So you were trying to find yourself again.
Yeah. And so my first solution to that was, okay, well, let's try and mold what I used to do into a role that I can perform, that I can fit basically within a school day. So I'm working when he's at school. I'm not working when he's not at school. And as a result of that, I became an independent consultant. And that worked pretty well. There were occasions when, I was in London, for example, and I was going to be late for a pickup at the school gates. But I had a good relationship with other parents, and they would, pick him up, take him back to their house. He'd have a lovely little play date, and then I'd pick him up from there, an hour and a half later or whatever it might be. So that was working really well. But as time went on, I really wasn't enjoying what I was doing as a consultant, So I then started to think about, well, what do I do next? I also read this article. I think it was in Esquire magazine, where Tony Parsons, an author and writer, had written this article about guys who look after their kids in a very, very disparaging way. And that really wound me up as well. So to start off with, I was thinking, well, I ought to do something that, kind of, as you do, that helps and supports dads, because if that's people's views of the role of a dad, then frankly, something needs to be done about that. So I did, start to think about that. And as I was thinking about that, I also kind of realized that I wasn't in the physical or mental state that I should be in. And I went to see the doctor, and the doctor did a load of tests with me, and I ended up being prescribed tablets for depression, hypertension, high cholesterol. I was warned about fatty liver, and I was warned about onset type 2 diabetes as well, basically as a result of me letting myself go kind of mentally and physically over the course of about 18 months.
So this is all after you left your job, you let yourself go?
Yes.
Was it because of your...
It's this lack of identity.
Lack of identity?
Yeah, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I wanted to be. And
do you not think a lot of men suffer that?
Totally.
Where they're this...
Totally.
If you say, what do you do? Or who are you? I'm a lawyer. I'm this.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because even when you look at someone's LinkedIn profile, they put their title
yes,
rather than who they are, what they believe in, what they bring,
Absolutely.
what value they add.
Absolutely.
So you were forced basically now to find yourself, and because you couldn't,
yeah,
you just...
I could say, yeah, I'm a consultant or whatever, but that I realized that was, that was just very, very shallow, and I needed to kind of find myself. And I spent a long time before I actually decided to do anything about it, and during that period, things deteriorated, not at any kind of rapid pace. It's kind of like, little by little, day by day, etc. I was drinking more, I was eating less healthily, I was moving less, and, my weight ballooned and my health declined and my mental health kind of plummeted. So that was where I ended up.
Why do you think it's important for people, for men, to know who they are, their self-identity? Why don't more people go on this journey of self-discovery?
I think partly it's because it's not anything that we are taught. So when it hits you, you kind of just feel you're a little bit confused actually to start off with. You kind of, well, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? And why do I feel so empty? I actually think it's incredibly common, particularly with guys in midlife, so you kind of, not right on your 40th birthday perhaps, but at some point from 40 onwards, you kind of have this midlife crisis as it can be termed. Why it's important is that I think the way our culture works is that we are encouraged to do what we're talking about, to have an identity that is related to a profession, a job, or a role in some way, shape, or form. The way certainly my parents brought me up was, to have a good job, be a manager, be a professional. Professions like doctors, lawyers, or whatever, accountants didn't fit the agenda for a working class lad up in Birmingham. But that they wanted something for me that was, I suppose,
secure,
had a status.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely not criticizing that because they wouldn't have known any better either. But I think that you kind of at some point realize that you're not a job title, you're not a profession, you're not a role, you are a person. And if you don't know who you are as that person, you kind of end up a little bit lost in a fog is how I felt. And therefore it's important because actually, if you strip everything away, all that's been stripped away is just stuff, whether it be possessions, whether it be status, whether it be job titles, whether it be whatever. You are the person that's deep inside that, ultimately made all of those things happen. And your character needs to be better understood. You need to better understand your own character, because without that, when those things are taken away, and that is a risk for most people, job security is nothing like what it used to be, certainly when my parents were working, job for life and a pension at the end of it. You can end up in the exact same position that I was in for different reasons, but just feeling lost and not really confident of how you're going to be able to sort that out. Whereas really, the things that got you to wherever you were are your inner essence that apply to everything. That is the real you, whether that be, parenthood, doing the gardening, being somebody in your local community. All of those things apply.
I find that a lot of time men will ask that question later in their life because they want to know what value they're really adding. Like what's my true purpose? Am I here just to do the accounts for a firm that can easily replace me? Or what value do I really bring to this world? And I think a lot of time it's fear, right? It's if I ask myself these deep questions, what's going to come back at me?
Yeah.
And am I going to like those answers?
And there is no easy answer either.
There's no easy answer.
It's possibly one of the toughest questions you can ask of yourself. And it does take, a lot of kind of meditation, for want of a better word, but it takes a lot of time to truly understand, what it is, because you can answer it at a superficial level. I'm ambitious because I built a career for myself. I'm high performing because, I'm a leader because I manage people, whatever. But at the end of the day, that's all bullshit. If there is something at a much deeper level that is driving you, subconsciously a lot of the time.
Do you think everyone's got that purpose within them? Do you think that's something that everyone has? I
think more people have got it that don't recognize it than people that do recognize it. Yes, it's something that is just deep within. And one of the things that I can't remember whether I read it in a book or on a podcast or something, but one of the things that I was recommended to do was to get a photograph of myself as a child. And I found this portrait shot that my parents had, professional portrait shot that my parents had organized when I was around about 3 or 4 years old. And I just sat staring at that, and I'm in the photograph, I'm looking directly at the camera. So when I'm staring at the photograph, I'm looking directly into the eyes of my younger self. And if you quieten the mind and you just kind of allow things to rest and you just look at those eyes, I found at least that I started to get some answers, because I just felt that the essence of who I am was as true then as it is now. And by just quietening the mind and kind of staring at myself, and I guess, to a point, kind of just allowing myself to be, I was able to kind of get a better sense of who I am deep inside. And then as a result of that, to think about, okay, so what is it that I want to do? And that came about almost by accident as well. However, I would qualify that by saying, I don't believe there are accidents. There are just things that you haven't thought of that somewhere subconsciously, or if you believe in, kind of manifestation and all of that type of stuff, that the universe presents in front of you that suddenly opens up a new opportunity for you. And that's what happened to me.
That's quite a powerful technique, actually, looking at the younger self. I'm visualizing some photos of myself.
Yeah. I'm
thinking, if I looked at my younger version, I've got this photo which was professionally taken as well, actually. And I can think of it, I can just see a smile. I think there's a lot of hope.
Yes.
Hope. Fun.
There's an innocence to it at that point. You haven't been, corrupted, for want of a better word, by life experience at that point.
Scarred by the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it does help you kind of get back to what it is that's really inside you.
When you thought nothing was impossible. As a child, everything's possible, isn't it? No dream is too big.
Totally. Yeah.
I love that. I'm gonna do that, actually.
It's a great technique. I highly recommend it.
I can imagine it's very emotional to do it, to really, if you're going to be still and look at yourself, because now you're holding yourself accountable to that child.
Exactly.
Have I lived this young boy's dream?
Absolutely.
Or have I failed him?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's very powerful.
Exactly what it creates. And by recognizing that and asking that type of question, am I living the life this person envisaged? Am I living this boy's dream, etc.? It kind of course corrects you. You think of things in a different way. You see things in a different way, and you do see all of a sudden opportunities for things that you could do, but as importantly, things that you should stop doing too. So that's the power in it. And it sounds, you could interpret this as being a bit of a kind of gimmicky, blasé, fast exercise, but if you do it properly, you're not doing this for a couple of minutes. You're doing it for hours and possibly more than once.
Definitely more than once. I think it's a good tool to actually check in.
Yeah,
regularly.
Absolutely. Yeah,
it's a great thing. So when you look back at yourself, what did that boy say to you?
He said, the words that I use are, "You're enough." That's it. You don't need to worry about anything. What you are, who you are, you're enough. And that in itself opens up possibility.
So you were out of shape.
Yes.
Close to diabetes, fatty liver, depressed.
Yeah.
Describe that man.
Ticking all those boxes.
I think I've seen photos on your Instagram. We've done it before and after, and you've shown the transition, and it's a big change.
It's a big change. Yeah. Actually, my before photo is the first photograph I took when I thought, oh, I'm actually looking pretty good, and it was about 8 or 9 weeks after I had made a load of changes. So I don't actually have a proper before photograph. However, it's close enough. But yeah, I made some big changes that happened all at once. I was inspired by a post on Instagram, and with the click of the fingers, I realized what that boy wanted. That was something from it. I did this exercise, and I kind of knew, and I was getting frustrated with myself because I wasn't doing the things that I wanted to do. I was getting angry with myself more than frustrated. And then I saw this post on Instagram, and it was almost like somebody flicked a light switch on, and I knew in an instant, okay, this is it. I am changing now. And
what was the post?
It was of all things, a picture of a Hobbit from the film. So Martin Friedman is the actor from the film, and it's a still from the movie. He's running through the Shire. He's got a big beaming smile on his face, hair flowing in the wind, and it had the words, "I'm going on an adventure." And I thought, that is how I want to live. That's what this boy, 3-year-old me in the photograph, wants. That's how he wants to live. And as a result of that, I thought about, well, is this how I'm living at the moment? And it was so far removed from where I was at that moment in time that, it's unbelievable. The idea of running through a field was pretty stretching for me.
So this is 2019, isn't it? Around that time?
Yeah, 2019. Yeah, 21st of January to be exact.
Okay, and talk me through that.
So I saw this photograph, and I just thought, that's how I want to live. And it stopped me in my tracks. And at this point, I'd just taken my son to school. I was doing my consulting at the time. I was working on a pretty big project. I didn't have any meetings. I didn't have to travel anywhere that particular day. And I spent the whole day, instead of working on the consulting work, just thinking about, okay, what does this mean to me? And the first thing I did was got a piece of paper, I drew it down, a line down the middle of it, and I put at the top what this person does. And then on the other side, what this person doesn't do. That person being me, living a life of energy, fun, adventure, laughter, joy, all of those kind of things. Now, don't get me wrong, when I was with my son, I embodied all of those things to the best of my kind of physical and mental ability. However, I still kind of knew that there was a valve capping my performance in that respect. However, it was when I was on my own that I was in a very depressed state, let's say. So that I wrote down all of the things that person would do. I wrote down all of the things that person wouldn't do, which was pretty much all of the things that I was doing at that moment in time. And I used that as my guide, so eating healthily, quitting alcohol, getting exercise, doing things that make me feel good, deliberately thinking about things that would make me, feel happier about myself and bring some joy, etc. And a whole host of other things as well. And that acted as my route map to basically becoming a hobbit that's going to go off and and fight some dragons with a bunch of dwarves.
I think that sounds quite easy to write down. Very hard to do in real life.
It is very hard to do. And, it's not like these things hadn't entered my head before. The list itself was actually quite easy to write because they were all things that I've been thinking about and beating myself up for either not doing or doing, whichever side they fell on. But at that moment in time, and I cannot explain how or why, but I just knew everything was different. So I knew that I was going to do all of the things on the right side of the list, and I was going to stop doing all of the things that were on the wrong side of the list. And I did. That was it. It was like an instant change, snap of the fingers. And, so I didn't touch another drop of alcohol, still haven't. I, started exercising. I tried running, but that was a little bit too difficult. So it ended up being a walk around the Surrey Hills instead. But one of the key things that was really important is that mentally, I shifted on day one. Physically, health-wise, ability-wise, it took longer than that, obviously. But mentally, I became the person that I wanted to be immediately.
Do you not think that may have been a build-up of all that time? And then finally it was like accumulated and...
Yeah.
Because... with AI now, for example, ChatGPT can tell you how to do everything.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
You still got to do it.
Absolutely.
I had this conversation yesterday with a friend. We've never lacked knowledge. There's abundant knowledge. People lack action.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the key is how do you get someone from seeing everything here and I've got to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, to actually doing it?
You have to want to. That's the key part. And there are two parts to this. One is that, I used to beat myself up for being the way that I was. It was the lifestyle that I was living. And I got to the point where I thought, well, you've tried so many times and not actually changed. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is as good as it gets. This is as good as you're ever going to feel, etc., etc. And that obviously only made me even more depressed about the situation. When I saw that photograph, it did two things. One is it inspired me, but the second part was it made me believe this is possible for me, that there is a better way, that I can embody that energy, that fun, that sense of adventure, etc. And when I therefore wrote the list of the things that would contribute to all of that adventurous life I wanted to live, all of a sudden, it became doable. I thought, yeah, I can do it. I had to walk rather than run, but I loved it. Just being out in the fresh air and enjoying the local countryside, etc., was wonderful. But I believed I could do it. That was a big thing. I think a lot of people, as you say, you can get the rule book and the playbook from wherever these days. But unless you believe that you can do that, and unless you believe that, that you will change as a result positively, you're at some point going to fall off and revert back to your old habits.
Yeah.
This time for me, I knew this is it. I can be this person. Yeah. And I don't know exactly why. It's almost quite mystical.
Yeah.
But and definitely mysterious. But I just knew. I had this sense inside of me. This is it.
I love the idea of that list showing all the things that I don't want to do, but if I don't do that, I can do this.
Exactly.
It's like a lot of time people put a list of I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, and it just feels really restrictive. But if you say, if I give up alcohol, I can do this. Or if I stop doing that, then it gives you hope. So it's more of a list of hope rather than a list of sacrifice. It's of gaining rather than losing.
Absolutely.
Which I think is a really interesting way of looking at things.
Well, that was key for me. And one of the things that I did, because my drinking was too heavy, and I joined a Facebook group called Team Sober UK, which is if you want to go down this route, I highly recommend joining that group. And I just started posting. My first post said, day one, no drink today. This is what I'm planning to do. Just been for a lovely walk, etc. And I posted every day. And that wasn't because I, for a second, thought anybody was interested on what day one and day two and day three looked like for me. But I felt accountable now to this group of, tens of thousands of people on Facebook that were going through or trying to go through or have been through a similar journey to the one I was embarking on. And I convinced myself that if I didn't post, day 4 after day 3, people would think, oh, it's gone, there's something wrong, etc. So that was my accountability.
And which is important.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, it is. And I think I got up to about day 280 something before I actually stopped doing those daily posts. But they were really important to me and my journey for doing it. But during the course of that, I noticed that, I was getting a lot of engagement on my posts, etc. And eventually the people that run that group on Facebook invited me to be, one of their team to help other people that were going through the journey themselves. And that was really, fulfilling, because everybody else that were on that team had been sober for years and years and years. I hadn't even chalked up 6 months at this point. So, it was nice to be invited. And I guess now that I was somebody held up to be supporting and helping other people, I had to stay on that track. Look, don't get me wrong. It's not like I was ever tempted actually to pick up wine was my passion, let's say. But I was never tempted to open a bottle of wine ever again after that day on the 21st of January.
What do you think they saw in you, the people who run this group?
Maybe a desire to help other people, which then carries through to what I do now. And I guess being an example, because I all of my posts were recent enough for people to have a look at. Oh, this is what Jason's day 1 looked like. This is what Jason's day 12 looked like. This is what day 33 looked like. And
were other people doing something similar? Were you the only one doing that?
No, I was the only one doing it.
Okay.
So I think something around that probably made them think, yeah, this guy can help us help others.
Right. So you were leading by example, right?
To a degree, yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you haven't touched alcohol since?
No, it's and no desire to. And what you said earlier is the key reason why, is that I didn't give anything up, and I gained so much. I really did. It's that as part of the other changes that I made, is, I say to people, why would I ever want to go back? So.
Would you recommend other people do the same if they're trying to change a habit or drop weight, stop drinking, whatever it might be, to hold themselves accountable? Because then it's not just you, right? You've said it to the world. I mean, I think the same applies in business as well. If you say to people, I'm going to build this.
Yes.
Now you can't quit because you've told people you're going to do it.
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of power in that.
Definitely. And I think it's more important to hold yourself to accountable rather than setting a declaration to others that, creates an accountability to them.
Yeah.
So, even now I will go through my calendar and I will schedule when I'm going to do a workout, when I'm going to do, some fun stuff, when I'm going to do this, all around, the other things that I do to run and build my business. So I protect and prioritize that time still, even today. And
so you started to make the changes, became sober. Is that when you started to really start working out? Was it all part of the same journey?
Yeah, it was. So everything changed on that first day, on the 21st of January. And so, I said to myself, right, I'm not going to have a drink tonight. It was any night, it was after James had gone to sleep and whatever. And, that's when I wouldn't open anything before then. And then I decided, right, I'm sure I've got some old trainers in the garage. I'm going to dig those out. And I went out for what I thought was going to be a run, but it turned out to be more of a walk. It's quite hilly around Surrey, to be fair, which is where I lived at the time. And after that, I started to think about, what kind of things would I like to do? So I decided to try a few things. I got swimming lessons because, I did have swimming lessons as a child, but didn't really progress much beyond doggy paddle. I was comfortable in a pool if I was on holiday and things like that, but swimming properly was not part of my repertoire. I thought about, how can I boost my social life? And I decided to take tennis lessons, group lessons rather than individual lessons, and joined the local tennis club as well. That was great fun. So doing all of those kind of things really built momentum for me, because the idea, if I went back to even the 20th of January of 2019, the idea of getting swimming lessons, doing tennis, walking or running through the local countryside. I also got a mountain bike as well and decided I was going to go and do that, which I absolutely loved. If you rode a BMX or something like that as a kid, I know we're different generations, but BMXs were massive, ET and all of that during the 80s when I was a teenager. There I was on this mountain bike, whizzing up and down hills, going whee, and having the time of my life, like I was 12 years old again. It was. But you were
48, 49?
49.
49.
Yeah.
It's amazing you made all these changes.
Yeah.
When most people would think, actually, I can't really make much difference now in my life.
Yeah, that is true. And, what my key message now is absolutely you can, age is irrelevant. Age is just a number. It's not too late, and you would be surprised at how capable you are of making some very significant life changes that are going to enhance your life in so many ways that you can't possibly comprehend. So
you totally changed your whole routine of your life, didn't you?
Yes.
Tennis lessons, the mountain bike, swimming lessons.
Yeah.
It's like a whole new you.
And it was all captured. That was my definition of adventure, if you like. Just doing all of those things. And not many orcs or dragons where I live. So that was my alternative.
And what did your friends and family say when they saw this new Jason whizzing around on his mountain bike?
The funny thing is that I didn't tell my wife anything about all of this stuff, and I not for any particular reason, but the way I was living, the way that I was, I did put pressure on our relationship, and I thought, well, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to. It's not that I didn't want to kind of risk disappointing her. I didn't want to kind of share it at that particular moment in time.
Why?
I thought, this is for me. I've got to do this for me. And I don't right now, I don't want to share it with anybody. I'm just going to get on with doing it. And about 10 days afterwards, she kind of noticed, when did you last have a drink or something along those lines? And so now I've decided to stop and, I'm going to sort myself out.
Do you think there was an element of, if I tell her and I don't follow through, she's just going to think?
No, I don't think so. There was an element though, because she's a twin, and not long after the 21st of January, so it would have been early February, they decided to go away to celebrate their 50th birthday. And so they were away for 4 or 5 days. And I did think at that point, if I am going to slip back, this is when it's going to happen, because nobody's there to watch. Nobody's watching. So who's going to know? Even though I hadn't said anything. And it was just so interesting that I didn't even think about it during that period. I was obviously my son was still around, but I didn't slip at all. I just kept going because I wanted to. I was starting to feel good, and it's quite amazing how quickly you do start to feel a difference. Within 7 days, you will start to feel different. You'll start to feel a higher level of energy. You'll start to feel differently about yourself, partly because you are doing these things for yourself and you feel good about doing them, therefore. But, I wear an Apple Watch. I did back then. Things like my sleeping heart rate, my resting heart rate. It used to be 78 to 84 beats per minute. And I actually still have the screenshot that I took of that resting heart rate going down to quite rapidly low 50s and now kind of mid to high 40s.
Which is low 50s is really good for people who don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows, basically your heart is having to work as hard to deal with your body. And part of that is down to having less fat in your body, and part of it is down to losing weight. However, the speed of that decline was amazing to me. I looked at it and I was thinking, I'm obviously doing myself a lot of good here. And then again, that's motivation to keep going.
Yeah. What I think is really important about what you're saying is, for men who want to make a change, right, is how quickly you start to feel that change. Because sometimes in life, if we start to do something, the results can take a while for us to see, right? But if you, like you said, you can start seeing a change a week, 2 weeks afterwards. Immediately you're thinking, oh, my life's going to be a lot better now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people just don't realize that.
Absolutely.
Is that mind shift, right?
And the speed for me was in large part because I made so many changes. Quitting drinking, starting moving, changing my diet, which involved going into a calorie deficit as well. Not that I kind of sit and calculated anything like that at that particular point in time. All of those things combined just made a huge difference to the way my body was working. And as a result, the way my mind was working.
So now you're this new Jason 2.0, right? Feeling fresh, adventurous, loving life.
Yeah.
What made you think I can help other people?
Seeing other people, mostly. So the reason I decided that I wanted to help people on the fitness side was, I subsequently joined gyms and started working out, etc. And I would be working out typically during the working day around about lunchtime. So when I was in the gym, the people that were in there were either on their lunch break or, they were working from home or in some cases retired. And I noticed that all of these people that were in and around my age group were kind of struggling. They weren't really, getting a good workout in, let's say. What they were doing was better than nothing, but it wasn't massively effective, let's say. Those people that were working with trainers were typically working with trainers that were, young enough to be son, daughter, or maybe a next generation down. And, there is nothing wrong with that. And I'm not criticizing young personal trainers at all. However, what I thought was that, there's no rapport because, I was the same when I was 20. Anybody over the age of 30, they're old and past it kind of thing. So, and you've got no idea of what it's like to be a parent, what it's like to have a demanding job, not what it's like to have elderly parents, or that that you have to look after, the pressures of family, all of those kind of things. And so it really came to a head one day. I was sitting on a chest press, kind of on a chair like this, pressing away, and there was a lady kind of diagonally opposite me to my left who was being trained by a personal trainer. And she was on a shoulder press and she was doing her repetitions, and the trainer wasn't even looking at her. He was chatting up a pretty young blonde girl on the next machine over. And I thought, I'm going to help people my age do what I've done, or at least make a big improvement to their health and fitness, and give them the help and support and the know-how that they deserve. And so I then decided, right, I'm going to stop the consulting. So I let the consulting kind of dwindle. And as I was doing that, I started studying for my personal training, my nutrition, and I did some other things as well around coaching, neuro-linguistic programming, etc. Because at that point I wasn't sure, what I wanted to do. Subsequently, fitness became my thing. But so I got all of my qualifications, and just as we came out of COVID, I was ready to go. So that was it. I started to market myself, started working with some friends to start off with, picked up some clients through online advertising, etc. And then when the gyms opened, I did a deal with a local gym where I could take the clients that I'd got, because prior to that they were having to work out at home, which is obviously a little bit limiting based on equipment, etc. And in return, they opened up their membership base to me and said, feel free to train any of our members. And so, quite quickly I built up a client base of typically guys and girls between 45 and 60 at the time.
So you found your calling
Yeah.
one day on a chest press.
Yeah. And that's what, I said it earlier. There are these things that happen. And at the time, you don't realize, you don't perhaps immediately realize how significant it is.
Yep.
But that post of Bilbo Baggins, how stupid. How can a post of a Hobbit on Instagram, of all the other really kind of, flashy posts that come up on Instagram, how can that be the one thing that changed my life? Why did that guy post it on that particular day? Why did it affect me the way that it did? But it did. I can't explain why. Why was it that I just happened to be sat on this chest press as there was a 60-odd-year-old lady, a personal trainer, and a pretty blonde, all interacting in a way which I didn't think was appropriate, that made me think, I'm going to help people do this. Why did I think, going back earlier than that, why did I think it's wrong that I'm spending so much time in this work environment and not spending time with my son? And almost, creating that opportunity that I was able to then shape and evolve into me exiting that life, and after a bit of to-ing and froing, starting a new one.
Yeah,
It's these things happen, and what I do believe is that when your mind is set in a certain way, you see things that you would otherwise ignore. There's a standard example of this, which is, let's say that you want to buy a black Ford Fiesta. All of a sudden, you'll start noticing black Ford Fiestas everywhere because it's in your conscious now. And they seem to, okay, everybody's got a black Ford Fiesta, and then you buy one and you see even more because it's in that in that consciousness. And I think if you start looking, if your mind starts looking for things, a lot of the time subconsciously, it will then see the opportunities that perhaps were always there, but you didn't recognize at the time.
It's almost like the Paulo Coelho's book, where he talks about the goal is always right in front of you, right? You can search the whole world for the answers, but the answers are always there.
Yes.
Right in front of you.
Yes.
If you're willing to look.
Absolutely.
How do you get people to look?
Through conversation, really. It's not something that you force, but
they have to be ready for it.
Sorry?
They have to be ready for it.
They have to be ready for it, and they also have to have a big reason why. They need something. So when I went through my change, the promise of what I was getting was much greater and more attractive than how I was living, and therefore it was worth doing what it took to get to that. So you have to have that reason why, because it's any form of habitual change is difficult. You have to give up stuff that you just do. When I used to open a bottle of wine at night, I didn't think about it. I'd just go, all right, go and do this bottle, open it and pour myself a glass. It was a subconscious thing. So you have to undo all of that, plus also build the new habits that are going to be better for you and move you to where you want to be. And the thing that enables you to do that is having a big reason why.
So this started off in midlife, right?
Yes.
Now you're on a mission. I want to help men and women 45 to 60 get in better shape, mentally, physically.
Absolutely.
How did you find that adventure?
It's probably the most fulfilling thing outside of my son and family that I've ever done. It's just seeing the change in people in every respect is great. You see people going through a similar type of change to the one I went through myself, and you're there supporting them, helping them, guiding them, and contributing to that journey. So from a career perspective, let's say, this is the most fulfilled I have ever been. It's not like I didn't enjoy, my corporate career. I really did enjoy it, but the way I describe it now is that I used to love what I did. Now I do what I love, and there is a big difference between those two.
Mm-hmm. What do you find are the most common things with men, let's say, that you're helping who want to change? What is it, the problems that they're usually coming with you? How much of it is, I feel overweight? How much of it is that they probably just need to be helped with, loneliness, depression, low self-worth? Because I can imagine you have to deal with the mental probably more than the physical, right?
Absolutely. There's, when I was training to become a personal trainer, I had this brilliant tutor who, his name was Bob Hope. He was in his 70s and he'd, been there, seen it and done a lot. And he spent a lot of time with me, perhaps as an older guy myself, kind of imparting his experience and wisdom. And he said, don't ever think this is about fitness. Fitness is just a part of it. It's a much bigger story with every client that you will ever work with, and you are going to be playing a much more important role than just helping somebody lose their weight or train for an event or whatever it might be. And that has proven to be true. However, nobody ever comes up to you and says, hi, Jason, I'm Bob. I'm a bit overweight and I could do with some help losing some pounds. That's the acceptable surface level thing that they're prepared to talk to you about at that time. And it's only by building the relationship with somebody that you then start to kind of get down to the next level, and then the next level, and then the next level. And one of the things that I would say that is In fact, I will absolutely say the biggest factor as to why I end up working with people is fear.
Of?
Lots of different things. So it could be fear of health issues. If I stay overweight like this, I might have heart disease. I might get diabetes, etc. Longevity issues. So things around, well, if I'm like this at 45, well, I'm going to be like at 80. Will I get to 80, etc. Family issues, which is I'm not here enough for, kind of who I was, for my kids, for my parents, for my wife, if we're talking about male clients. Kind of life issues around I'm just not being the person that I know that I can be. A lot of the people that I work with are typically people who have been fit at a previous point in their life, sometimes even to the point of being, kind of high level performing athletes or sports people of some description. And then it's all kind of been let go. However, and I think most guys will recognize this, is that, particularly if you did say play football or cricket or whatever it is in your childhood, you still think that you're that same person and that you can play football and, you can take the ball off somebody or take the ball around somebody and put in a great cross or score a great goal and something until you try. And all of a sudden you realize that, what's in your mind is very different now to what you're actually capable of doing. However, what's in your mind is still your self-image. And so you want to kind of regain that athleticism and that ability. And that can be a big driver for people because there's a gap between how they see themselves and how they actually are. And, helping people to do that is key. And those are the clients that, you kind of, during their journey, they start thinking, I'm going to enter this high rock, so I'm going to go and enter this marathon or half marathon or etc. Because that's part of I'm proving to myself I'm an athlete. I'm getting myself back to where I always should have been. So the commonality is fear, and it's fear that I'm not an athlete anymore. I can't do the things that I thought I could do that I used to be able to do. Why is that? Or the future, or something that's going on in their life right now. In some cases, unfortunately, I suppose, some people have ended up coming out of a relationship, and as part of the process of dealing with that, and also, well, who else is going to be interested in me? They want to improve themselves. So there's that factor too. But there's always, it's not just about losing weight. It's not just about looking better. In fact, it's rarely about looking better, although everybody obviously wants that benefit as well. There's a deeper drive that sits behind all of this. And one of the things that did help, even though, I don't practice this as I don't offer it as a service, but doing things like coaching courses, neuro-linguistic programming, I even did hypnotherapy. I'm qualified for that as well. I don't ever use it. Some of my clients might disagree. Have I ended up doing 20 reps of this? But doing all of those things has made me, I think, more capable of seeing that bigger picture at least, and hopefully helping people through it.
Because I was going to actually say that I can imagine part of what you do is almost like therapy, not in a traditional form, but the conversations is like your barber and you get your haircut, but you also just start talking about life.
Exactly.
And sometimes people just need to offload. And you realize that a lot of your work is giving them safety, that you're safe with me, talk to me, I'm not going to judge you.
Yeah.
And then through that connection is trust.
Totally.
Through that trust comes change.
Totally.
And it's a pathway. So you have to be very, I guess, in tune and sensitive to how people are feeling, which I think probably is one of the reasons why you're so successful, is you give the people time and a space to open.
Yes.
I read his book once where this guy's a plastic surgeon, and he said people used to come in and say, I want to get my nose done, I want to do this. And he realized that if he could deal with their problems mentally, they didn't want to make the physical change.
Yeah.
A lot of times they needed self-belief.
Yeah.
They needed to be told, you don't look funny. It's all in your mind.
Yeah.
And he actually started then training to be a therapist and a coach because he realized that he was doing procedures that didn't need to be done.
Sure.
I can imagine, a lot of it is with coaching is that with what you do is in the mind.
It's a big part of it. And if you can get, in my case, the mind changed before the body. And I think that's fairly typical and fairly true. So I do invest the time in helping people get their mind, focus more on who they want to be rather than the things that they want to leave behind. Because most people's motivation is driven by what they want to leave behind rather than what they want to move to. The reason that Hobbit had a big impact on me was it represented in a visual all of the emotions I wanted to feel. And if you can paint a picture of what life can be like for somebody, then they're much more inclined to follow the road to get there.
Is that an approach that you use now?
Yeah, but probably not. Well, definitely not as kind of obviously as that. But it's always an underlying part of the conversation.
If someone has somebody in their life who needs to make a change, right? They need to be a bit more fit, drop some weight, but they're resistant, right? It could be a cousin, a brother, anybody.
Yeah.
You need to lose some weight. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You see, they won't do it. There's a block, right?
Absolutely.
Is there a way to inspire and encourage that person, or does it have to come from within?
I think it has to come from within, but there are things that you can do to help people find whatever it is within. And sometimes that can be setting an example. So, if you're not somebody that's kind of regularly working out in a gym bod yourself, then say, I'm thinking of joining the gym. Do you want to come and have a look? Kind of thing. Those type of things can. So there's no pressure, but setting an example, I think, is a good way of influencing somebody. Because if you see somebody else doing something, then all of a sudden you can think it's possible for you. Roger Bannister with the 4-minute mile is a great example. He ran the mile in less than 4 minutes, and 6 months later, another 20 people had done the same, whereas it hadn't been done for years and years and years. But once somebody had done it, that mental barrier had been broken, and its ability was proven. So others, kind of followed suit. And I think that if you're able to kind of show in some way, shape or form that something's possible, then people are more likely to think, well, maybe I could do that as well. The last thing I would ever advise is to put loads of pressure on it in the way that you kind of exampled. Oh, come on, you've got to do something. Look at yourself, whatever. That is always going to have a detrimental effect.
Because I think what you're saying is so true for mental health, right? When someone's suffering a depression or whatever challenge they're going through, and people say, man up, just sort it out, right? What you have to do, and what we try to do with this podcast, being a men's mental health podcast, is if one man can show vulnerability and open up, it gives the other man the power to do the same.
Yeah.
Right? So setting that example is
Absolutely.
a massive part, is basically what we do. Role models, set an example. You're not weak by showing who you really are or for asking for help. So I guess you're using that same approach, right?
Yeah, totally. And, it is something that we're just, our half of the gender pool isn't very good at. And, we do bottle things up, and that can be quite dangerous, as we all know. And if you are able to just talk with somebody, or if you are on the other side and there is somebody that wants to talk to you, just listen, please. Don't offer you guidance. Don't offer to start off with. Just listen and support, and kind of reassure somebody. And even if we say, look, whatever happens, mate, I've got you back. I'm going to be here to help and support. That is sometimes all somebody needs to hear to make them feel better. And as soon as people start to feel better, it's normally step one of a fair few steps, and they will, gradually kind of get their way out of it. Sometimes suddenly get their way out of it. But yeah, don't bottle it up. Find somebody to share these things with.
Do you find that you get clients who approach you who feel like they need to get fitter, but really they need their mental fitness to be changed? Do you find that they're thinking they need, I need to be in good shape, but really they're running away from a mental problem rather than a physical problem?
Yeah, all the time. When we use the word problem, I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a kind of major psychological issue of any type. However, there's generally something in somebody's self-image that will prevent them from making the progress that they want. It might be that they think of themselves as somebody who doesn't stick to things, doesn't see the job through, kind of flits around, etc. Can't make anything work. It might be that they just, frankly, always see themselves as being fat, and that's it. And there's big boned or whatever. It's come out with something along those lines. Self-image is a key thing to change with any client for me, and getting them to see themselves as they want to be, and believing that they almost already are that person. Faking it until you make it. Is a key part of what I do.
Why do you want to help people? What is it that drives you?
So I know how bad it was. It all comes down to nobody I know, even family, like my wife, my son, my parents. I'm an only child, so there's no siblings. Friends, anybody that knew me. Nobody would have thought I had a problem. Nobody. And when I did go through my changes, and people noticed those changes because I'd lost a load of weight and all everything, so it's not like you were that bad. That there was nothing wrong with you before type of comments. And I have to say, well, actually, I was on my way to type 2 diabetes. I had hypertension. I had high cholesterol. And I had fatty liver. So clearly there was something wrong with me. And I think when I look at people in my age bracket, what's going on the inside in terms of health, physically and mentally, is very as well hidden as I hid it myself. And I want to get people to find their true selves. And I do absolutely believe that fitness is the biggest thing that you can do to change that. I really do.
Wow, that's powerful. Do you think that's a common thing where we just ignore other people's problems? We know people, we think we know them. We don't really know them because we're not picking up on the signs.
That's right. I do think that. And, part of that is that we are, as a culture, quite insular. We look at ourselves. We're too busy worrying about ourselves to worry about anybody else. And I do think we can miss the signals. And I do think that we're all very good at hiding it. We don't want to give those signals out, particularly men, because it does show vulnerability. It does show weakness. It does show all of these things that we as men are taught that we shouldn't be showing. We should be tough and strong and masculine and man up and all of those kind of things. Well, actually, really being tough and strong is opening up, because you're having the courage to do that and to take some risk. That's what's really important.
How do you think someone picks up on signals? Like, you're now picking up signals on when you meet people. How does
it helps if you've been through it yourself, because you recognize in others what you did yourself. So that, for me personally, is the biggest thing. But one of the things that I would say is to just, how you doing today? Oh, I'm good. I'm all right. Are you? Are you really? Yeah, tell me what's going on. Just, dive in a little bit deeper, because, it is incredibly rare for anybody not just to accept, yeah, I'm doing great.
But people say it without really caring.
Of course.
I had one of my friends is a therapist on, and he's the only person I ever ask, "How are you?" And he'll actually think about it and he'll say, "Today I'm feeling grateful. I'm a little bit anxious, but overall, I'm hopeful that it's going to be a good day."
Yeah.
He actually told me.
Yeah.
We use "How are you?" as a nothing question.
You may as well just say hello.
You might as well just say hello. But then you probe a little bit further, and then that person feels that actually maybe I can tell them that I'm nervous about X, Y, and Z, or anxious about this, that.
Yeah.
I love that. Do you ever look back at your life and think, actually, when I was doing all that searching, I was trying to find who I am. It was always meant to unfold like this. I was always meant to go through this, because now when you look at that child, look at the young 3-year-old version of yourself, you can probably say, yeah, I'm doing what I was always meant to do.
Yes. I think that whatever we do in life, if we want to help others and we have gone through some change and we're trying to help others to go through a similar change, our best clients are the people we used to be. And for the people we used to be, the best teacher is somebody that we are now. And so, yeah, absolutely. I don't think, had I have not gone through the health scare, because it's not nice, lying in a hospital having a camera stuck up your backside, and because of your lifestyle, not because of some terrible illness that you've contracted somewhere, because you have chosen deliberately, or perhaps subconsciously, to just live your life in a certain way, which isn't that healthy or that good for anyone, let alone you. So I do believe that, if I hadn't gone through all of that, I wouldn't be qualified to help people in the way that I'm able to help people now. And it's not normally the case that people are, as extreme as I was, or, in terms of health complications, etc. But they want to make a change that's similar in some way, shape or form. And yeah, had I not experienced it, I wouldn't know what it's like to try and get out of it and fail, because that was me, and to get out of it and be committed to becoming the person that, they want to be and I wanted to be.
I love that. We're coming to the end of this chat now. It's been a really inspiring conversation. What's one thing that we should have spoken about that we haven't spoken about? A question I should have asked you that I haven't, or something that you feel like you want to share?
Well, given the nature of this podcast, I'm speaking directly to dads now. Okay, so you might be busy. You might be, you might feel like you can't do this kind of stuff in terms of fitness and strength, etc. Now, I've lost both my parents. Whilst I'm an only child, my parents both came from large families, and I have seen too many care homes, hospitals, etc., with people who are getting care in their late 60s, their 70s, far sooner than they should be, due to a lack of dependence. Okay? Independence, sorry. So they're reliant on somebody else. Now, think about your kids. Okay? When those kids were born, you probably did what I did. You're holding that baby, and you're looking into their eyes and you're saying, "You're everything to me. I'm going to do anything for you." Okay? My question would be, does that include being a burden to them when you're in your 70s, 80s, etc., because you can't get up off the toilet, because you can't get out of a bath, because you can't walk to a car, and they're reliant on somebody helping them? Now, you might say, we're in England, we've got the NHS that'll do that for us. Yeah, the NHS will look after them whilst they are ill enough to be in hospital, and then they will discharge them, and you get 28 days then of care for its local authority provided. After that 28 days, or during that 28 days, that person will get means tested. Okay? And the free care will therefore stop. So all of a sudden, you've got to start funding or sell the house or whatever it might be, eat into your savings for paid for care. If you as a parent live long enough, that money's going to run out at some point. Who's going to care for you then? At some point, your kids either are going to end up not getting the money, the inheritance that you really hope to provide them to get them off to a great start, or you're going to be a burden to them because you're the one helping them out of the bath. How are they going to do their job? How are they going to look after their kids? How are they going to live their life if that's what you're demanding of them? And is that really what you meant when you looked them in the eyes and said, I'll do anything for you? So for God's sake, take this seriously. If you don't, your muscles are wasting away every single year at a rate of between 2 and 4% if you're over 50. There are too many people who have to get up off a chair by pushing themselves down because they don't have the strength in their legs to get up at the age of late 50s and 60s, etc. If you can't get up off a chair, out of a bed, off the toilet, by the age of 70, 75, you're going to be in a home or have somebody caring for you. If you do some strength work, you can set that back multiple decades, and you can live a full, lively life with your kids, with your grandkids, and be the person that you want to be rather than a burden. So that would be this isn't about looks. It's about being the person that you want to be. And, in the context of this and fatherhood, being the father that you promised that newborn baby that you would be.
Well, man, that's powerful. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a real pleasure.
Likewise.